Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Not Your Average Josh back here for another movie review, and today I'm reviewing the movie Devotion. Directed by J.D. Dillard. He did a very good job in this movie. Starring Glenn Powell, also Jonathan Majors as Jesse Brown. He's the main star of the film. You also have Joe Jonas in here, Christina Jackson as Daisy, the wife of Jonathan Majors' character Jesse Brown. And you also have a few other characters thrown in throughout there, but those are the most notable characters, I will say, in the movie. I did enjoy this movie. It was a good movie. It could have been better. I was actually hoping for a little more. It was a little underwhelming. But first of all, to start out, you got to mention Jonathan Majors, who really, I think, for me, is really becoming one of my favorite actors working today. He's just so good in everything he's in. He has a lot of various roles he's played. If you've seen Lovecraft Country, I thought he was really good in that show. It was an HBO show, a limited series, and he was a really good protagonist in that. And of course, you also are now having him come, of course, into the Marvel Universe as Kang the Conqueror. I'll be interested to see what he is like as a straight-up villain in that. And then, of course, seeing him in this movie where he is another protagonist, but a different kind of protagonist than, I would say, Lovecraft Country. Devotion is about an aerial war epic based on the best-selling book of the same name. It tells the harrowing true story of two elite U.S. Navy fighter pilots during the Korean War. Their heroic sacrifices would ultimately make them the Navy's most celebrated wingmen. This movie goes kind of how you would expect this movie to go. I guess that would be my main major criticism with the movie. This movie does a really well job at everything it's trying to accomplish. I think the directing is well done here, whether it's aerial battles that you have throughout. This movie, as mentioned in the description, is about the Korean War and some of the things that go on during that war, but really focuses on these Navy pilots and their what they did to contribute to this war. And really focusing also on Jesse Brown, who Jonathan Majors plays, and he is really good in this movie. I think there are a few moments that he really becomes this character, Jesse Brown. And I will say, going into this, I didn't know anything really about the Korean War, really. I know, obviously, I did learn about it in school, but I don't really have much memory of what I did learn about it, unfortunately. I don't know if that's more indictment on me or the school system, but that's another discussion for another YouTube channel. But I didn't know much about this war going into this, therefore I didn't know much about Jesse Brown. So it was really very interesting and intriguing to learn about his story in a way. Of course, it's also loosely based on a true story, so not everything's going to be completely factual. And there were moments in this movie where you could see where, okay, this is most likely where they dramatized this moment. But for the most part, I thought it was played very grounded, very realistic. It's a typical movie that you'd see like this. It's kind of a biopic in a way, I guess you'd say. This movie kind of goes the way you would expect. That would be my main criticism with this movie, I think, overall. Even from scene to scene, a lot of the sequences that happened were not very unexpected. I kind of expected almost exactly what was going to happen for a lot of this movie. And it's really not an indictment on the movie as a whole. I think a lot of it probably was the true story of what happened. It's just one of those things that it just felt very predictable in what was going to happen in the movie. A lot of similar story progressions you see in movies like this, based on true stories, really focusing on one person. You have some death thrown in here. You have some tragic moments. You have some beautiful moments. You do really get to know Jonathan Majors' character pretty well. I would have liked to explore him a little more in certain aspects. Dealing with certain levels of grief. I do think they do a good job, though, at portraying just the difficulty that Jesse Brown, the real man here, had in becoming this Navy pilot. And they do go into, at various times, the different difficulties he had from different commanding officers and whatnot of doing things to try and sabotage his tests he had to take to try and progress further. And when he graduated, the main dude, commanding officer or whatever, didn't even pin the medal on him, or whatever it's called. And it's a medal, but didn't even pin that on him to signify that he is now where he's at. There was just a lot of little moments like that. I thought they did a good job of portraying it and displaying it in a good way, where you really understood and felt the hurt and just the hard work that Jonathan Majors' character, Jesse Brown, had to go through to get to the level where he's at. This movie really starts, he's already an adult. You don't ever get to see that I can remember in this movie Jesse Brown as a kid. You're really filling in a lot of kind of his background in a way throughout with the experiences he's going through in the present time, kind of what his personality is like. Although I don't think Jonathan Majors was great in this movie, I do think he's really good in this and has great moments. There's a moment where he's looking at a mirror and he's just you see all this emotion on his face. He's talking to himself, giving him this kind of self-talk, I guess you will say. He's really just going through all these moments of the negative talk that people have given him throughout his life. You know, calling him the N-word or telling him that he can't do it because he's black. That was the first moment in the movie, about 20 minutes in, where I felt like Jonathan Majors became this character. And there was also another moment with Glen Powell, which I will talk about here in a moment further. Jonathan Majors and Glen Powell, their whole team was coming back in from some testing training thing, and these other group of guys, I believe, are either part of the Army or the Marines. I'm not sure what. They were kind of, shit talking Jonathan Majors, Jesse Brown, because, of course, for the reason you would expect, because he's black, and they're just fucking with him. And you can see Glen Powell's really pissed at him, and Jonathan Majors just basically shrugs him off, turns the other cheek, and leaves. They have this conversation in back in their barracks, I guess you'd say. And Glen Powell's basically asking him, his character is saying, why didn't you fight back? Why would you not fight back? I mean, you're just going to stand there and take that. And there's really this moment where Jonathan Majors, I would say for like 5 to 10 seconds at least, just gives Glen Powell this look. And without even saying anything, he just portrays his emotions, and you feel, it's like you can hear the inner dialogue in his head. I thought it was a great acting moment. Like, there's only really so many people that can do stuff like that when it comes to acting. I know a lot of, acting, it doesn't always look the hardest or whatever, but, in certain scenes, like those two scenes especially, Jonathan Majors just really is just showing his acting prowess and showing his skill as well as an actor, and just to be able to portray emotion and really an inner dialogue without even saying anything, I thought was really great. But overall, he did a really good job. And then now going into Glen Powell's character, I really like Glen Powell. I've seen him in a few other things. It's really cool to really to see him in more of a prominent role, for me at least, in this movie. And I thought he did a really good job of playing this character who really becomes one of, if not Jesse Brown's best friends while they're out beginning the fight during this Korean War. I love you really start this movie and you're really following Glen Powell's character for the most part. He's coming on the ship for the first time. That's how this movie starts, and he starts training with Jesse Brown and his crew. And you really see their relationship blossom. I think that was one of the best parts of this movie. Jonathan Majors and Glen Powell, their relationship they had. At the beginning, it's a little rocky. Again, kind of predictable for how this movie would go. It's not that they're enemies or anything, but, they're trying to fill each other out, and they eventually do have this good relationship that I think it fit really perfectly, because they didn't overdo it. They could have made it to where, they're all of a sudden really buddy-buddy. They never were quite that close because they didn't know each other for that long, really. But they do have a certain relationship, a closeness that they build over time in the movie that I thought was very natural and I thought worked very well. And I was really invested in their relationship. It does have a rather predictable ending, I guess you would expect. Again, goes kind of along with the rest of my main comment on this movie is just the predictability of it. It does, I think, because it is so predictable, does put a ceiling on how much I will like this, just for me personally, because there was just only so much I can get invested with these characters, because I felt like I was seeing everything coming. Because it is based on a true story, it's not necessarily a huge indictment on the film, but it is just something, the biggest glaring, issue I might have with this movie. Overall, the performances were really good. I thought the runtime was very appropriate. The cinematography was really good. There was, I'd say, there's a really good portion of this movie that's in the air, fighting scenes, their jets going out doing various missions, fighting, whether it's the enemy or, just doing specific missions they have to do. And then you do have a few moments of ground fighting as well that kind of display what was going on in the Korean War. Again, I didn't know much about this war, so I don't know how much of it is factual in terms of what they were saying, the information they were giving up that was going on about this war. They don't really go into the politics of the war that much. You're really just focusing on what these men specifically have to do that you're following. They don't really go into how much was true and false on, this war. I don't have any huge negatives that derail my enjoyment of the movie overall. I think just the predictability of it, like I said, that's my main issue with it. But other than that, I really did enjoy seeing Jonathan Majors and Glen Powell together. They really do grow a great chemistry. Their leading commanding officer, I don't remember his name, he was really good in it as well, as playing kind of this mentor for both of them and really their whole crew. There was also some good little comedic moments throughout that were, you would expect in a movie like this, just kind of Again, kind of predictable comedic moments, similar tropes for this type of movie, I guess you'd say. But and I do this a lot, not necessarily on this channel that much yet, but there was a comparison here for me, and I know it's fiction, but to Star Wars. And just hear me out if you're watching this video. The way it compares to Star Wars for me is after Return of the Jedi. Trying to say this with a straight face. After Return of the Jedi, you had, obviously a bunch of years go by in real time, but The Mandalorian finally comes out. If you've seen the series of Mandalorian, know anything about Star Wars, it takes place a little bit after Return of the Jedi, and I always felt in, TV or movie form, we did get it in the comics or whatever, but we never got, like, what happens right after Return of the Jedi when the heroes have won. There's, what is the first, incidents or inciting conflicts that happen that lead to other little wars that go on, because that happens throughout history. Obviously, it's happened forever throughout our history, and so I thought there was a good parallel here with that for me, a good comparison where you get to see in this movie 1950, 5 years after World War II. They have a pretty good amount of commentary on that in this movie, on how some of these men fought in World War II and they're already back here fighting in the Korean War. It's just there were some men that were just called to fight for their country, or they just loved doing this. There's a brotherhood about it, but I love the commentary on that. And then just seeing how, wars are pretty much endless in the world, not to get depressing about it, but, there's always constant war in life, people wanting certain stuff, certain, discretions going on throughout the world. I thought it was really cool to see the politics of that, on how just 5 years later after World War II, and then we're getting into this other conflict with the Koreans and the Chinese as well. It was just very interesting to see that play out as well. That is my main thoughts on Devotion. I would recommend this. Go check it out. And I would give Devotion a 7 out of 10. So yeah, that is my main thoughts on Devotion. Be looking for more videos soon. I have a bunch of videos I've already recorded. I'm going to be posting a lot this week. I just appreciate anyone who's watching this. Follow me on Snapchat, TikTok. You'll get similar content like this. The main thing, like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate any of that stuff. Any support I get for this channel. I'm just doing this for fun. That'll be it for now. Be looking for more videos soon. I appreciate everything, and I will talk to y'all later.